Hello, and thank you for joining this session on how to deploy RVI Productivity Solutions for faster, easier, and better RVI results. I'm Paul Thompson with Waygate Technologies Visual Business, and I'm the Global Manager of Training and Technical Support. Before we begin this session, I want to cover a few housekeeping items so that you can get the best experience here. You'll see across the bottom of the screen there are multiple applications for engaging with this platform, and they're all resizable, movable, put them where you want, turn them on or off, whatever is best for you. And then the materials that are going to be presented tonight are going to be post-event available to you. As a matter of fact, some of the supporting materials are available right now for downloading through the resources section. Then if you have any questions during the webcast, you can submit them through the Q&A engagement tool, and I'll do my very best to answer every one of them during the webcast. I'll have a Q&A session at the end. And if you think I didn't answer your question fully, or if you want a better answer, a more complete answer, or if we run out of time, we'll answer your questions later via email. But please don't hesitate to send me an email directly at paul.thompson@bakerhughes.com. I'll be happy to help you out. Then at the end of the webcast, you can also click on a couple of links for booking a request for a meeting, whether it's a in-person meeting or a distance meeting through virtual technology. Just click on the engagement tools and we'll absolutely get in touch with you. And then lastly, like I said, there will be a copy of today's presentation available to you after the event is over and the video is finalized. So with that, I want to move into our agenda for this evening. Evening my time, probably morning for some of you in Asia. Thank you very much for joining. We just released a new operating system for the Mentor Visual IQ flame-colored handset, and this 3.5 software is available now to download over the air on your device if you're connected wirelessly or hardwired. I'll talk some more about that in a minute. You can also go to our Inspection Works platform and download it. But some of the key tools and opportunities for you to improve your inspection that are available in there, I'm going to talk about specifically tonight. One of them is always-on digital video recording. And then also I want to talk about auto-repeating measurements, making your job easier when you're doing the same measurement type repetitively. In a recent webinar, when I asked people their toughest type of a measurement that they were having to accomplish regularly, blade tip clearance pulled at the top of the list. So I want to show you blade tip clearance. We've done some things to declutter the screen and make the screen more useful around the cursor sizes and the text and the annotation sizes. Something else I want to show you in the productivity section is now you're able to do a better job inspecting more things, like in small passageways in castings or turbine blades or oil lines. We have this 2.2 millimeter video Boroscope that is fully integrated with the Mentor Visual IQ. And what happens almost every result, the results after every inspection, people are doing something with the data. Menu Directed Inspection is a platform that I'll talk to you about and talk about how do you capture and annotate and archive the data for use later. And then also want to talk to you about connectivity and how to stream live information to a remote support person anywhere in the world, or have complete command control and display of your VideoProbe from an iOS device. So first, let's talk about some things you'll find in this 3.5 operating system. So the first thing that I want to talk about is DVR recording. And you'll see there's a lot of information on these pages. And folks, I'm not going to read the pages to you because you'll be able to pull this display or this presentation down later and read it. I do want to cover the highlights. And this digital video recording, if you've ever thought you saw something on the screen but you missed it, you can simply turn on digital video recording and you see that slider button. You can slide it anywhere from 1 minute to 10 minutes. And if you press DVR record, you'll have that video recorded and then you don't have to worry about having missed something that you didn't actually take a shot of. Then, if you're doing the same measurement type regularly, and it doesn't matter what type it is, the Mentor Visual IQ Analyze system with this new 3.5 software actually offers you 9 different measurement types. Let's say you're doing a blade tip clearance. Every time the turning tool stops the blade in front of the camera, you take a picture. Well, we have technology in here that will allow that system to take the picture automatically, but not only that, it now sets up a blade tip clearance if that's what you chose during the auto repeat function. Works with all of our technologies on the Flame handset, whether it's 3D phase or 3D stereo or traditional stereo. Then I mentioned blade tip clearance a minute ago, and again, I don't know if I was surprised, but I found it intriguing that so many people said that blade tip clearance is one of the toughest and most often needed kind of measurement in whether it's an aero turbine or an aeroderivative turbine. And what's happening is, if you look at that little picture on the right, it's checking the distance between a blade and a compressor or in a power turbine and its gap between that and the shroud. And that helps tell somebody what the engine's performance characteristics are. This blade tip clearance now measures that automatically. You'll see it live in a minute. And then what often happens when you're looking at a screen, there can be a lot of data on the screen. And so we've changed the inactive cursor size to be smaller. You can still see them anchored on the screen, but they're smaller so they're not cluttering up the screen. However, in this blade tip clearance, you see that I have a green arrow pointing to the smaller cursor on the left of the screen. That's the minimum value. Well, I've had the ability to put that green arrow in that color, whereas the red arrow is the maximum separation. So I can change the arrow colors, I can change text annotation colors and size, but you also see that red arrow is pointing to a larger cursor, and that's indicating the maximum separation from tip to shroud. Green arrow pointing to the cursor with the minimum separation tip to shroud. So you see that here. I'm going to play a video for you so that you'll be able to see what I'm talking about.
Let's take a look at this functionality that I just described that was released in the 3.5 software for the Mentor Visual Flame handset. Have you ever been inspecting a scene and wish you had video recording on, but you hadn't because maybe something just went by the screen and you missed it, had a hard time relocating it? Well, here's what you can do now. You can go into the global menu, go to settings. On the left-hand side where I have image and video selected, on the right-hand side, you'll see that I have DVR recording available now. I can set my recording time from anywhere from 1 second all the way up to 10 seconds, and 1 second intervals by tapping the slider or just slowly dragging it to wherever you want. Let's say I want a 6 second interval. Now when I turn DVR recording on, you will notice in the status bar the D with a red circle, and that indicates that DVR recording is available. And anything that was on screen, it's WYSIWYG, so what you see is what you get. The last 6 seconds of what was on the screen is going to be recorded. So if I go back to a live scene, articulate around that image, go to the global menu and press Save DVR, you see it's going into the DVR folder. I can recall that by going to the File Manager and looking at the, I think this should be the last one. And something to know is that you can't have 2 instances of the DVR or the video playback recording system running at a time. To play back your videos, you must go into the settings, turn off the DVR recording, go back to your global menu, File Manager, and play the video back. So you should get the last 6 seconds of what was on the screen as a part of this video recording. We have controls across the bottom to play the DVR, so I can play it back by pressing play at the bottom. And now it's playing back the last 6 seconds of the live. What you see is what you get video on the screen. If you recall, I was in my global menu initially, and towards the end of that sequence, I went back to a live image and was looking at a trailing edge of a turbine blade that had some erosion kind of damage in it, which I would expect it to come up any moment now. So it's really handy to capture video to give somebody a perspective of what was going on in a scene and an asset when you recorded a still image that was measured upon. And speaking of measuring, I now want to mold 3 different capabilities into one discussion here. I talked about having measurement auto repeat, so that if I was going to continuously be looking at, in this case, the suction side of a blade that had FOD or holes or burn through in them, I could set it up to do the same kind of measurement repeatedly. In other words, if I do a 3D PM capture, I would typically do an area depth profile on this because I have a curved surface. And I would first go to measurement, and on the lower bottom, I would turn auto repeat on if I wanted to continue to do the area depth profile. I would then place my cursors for that measurement. And you see that I get 115 thousandths of an inch. I can assess this with my point cloud to make sure that I'm correctly aligned with that suction side and not running across the radius, but with the radius. Yeah, that looks better. And when I go in to take the next measurement, so let's say that I've repositioned the camera, I'm back at a new blade, all I have to do is press 3D PM capture. I don't have to set the measurement up. I do have to validate the cursors are in good placement. But you'll notice that it comes up with the same measurement type. I didn't have to place that. It's a complete time saver. The other thing I want you to know is the active cursor on the left that is blue is the same as the active cursor on the right that is blue. And notice over here on the left-hand side, we've changed it so that it is easily discernible which cursor is active. When I press enter, you'll see that the cursor that was active is now a much smaller cursor dot. That green cursor at the top is smaller to help declutter the screen. So that's something else that we added to make it easier, faster, and better for you to make measurements and get more meaningful results. And lastly, I want to show you a tool that, quite frankly, pulled at the top of the list when I asked people in a recent webinar, what measurement type are you doing most frequently that you would like to be easier? And what pulled out at the highest, at the top of the list, from weld measurements to pitting, corrosion, missing material, excuse me, was a blade tip clearance. So in this case, I have a blade tip on the screen. When I select measurement, you'll see that it recognized that blade tip in the scene, and on the lower left, blade tip clearance is now active. I can select that, and it is automatically going to place the measurement plane. That is the 3 cursors that are on the shroud with the surface mask in green. That is cursor 1, cursor 2, and cursor 3. Now I have additional cursors. Let me move the measurement results out of the way so that I can declutter the screen. I now have a minimum separation between the cursor that is on the tip of the blade and the shroud of 97 thousandths. That's the minimum, and I know that because it's a smaller cursor. And then the maximum is this larger cursor, which is 104 thousandths. And then all the way between the span of left to right. So I'm measuring from where that cursor is on the left, where that cursor is on the right, the average across that entire tip is 101 thousandths, and I can actually change the zone that is being inspected. So I'm now only inspecting that zone from the right-hand active cursor and now I touch the blue cursor on the left to make it active. And I am simply looking at a smaller zone where the smaller cursor, again, it's on the left, is 97 thousandths. The larger cursor on the right on the tip of the blade is 103 thousandths, tip of the shroud, and the average is 100. I do want to point this out because people ask frequently, why is there all of the green masking on the screen? And you'll notice that green mask is data that is very close to that measurement plane, those 3 points, cursor 1, 2, and back here 3. That's the plane that establishes the measurement or depth plane to measure from that plane above or below it. And data that's green, and I rotate it on the side here, you'll notice that data is all very close to that mathematical plane established by those 3 cursors. I often use the terminology clean point cloud or noisy point cloud. That point cloud that's masked in green is so clean that it is razor thin. I see no noise or Z points going above that plane. So I'm feeling really confident in the depth value with this measurement.
Hey, Gina, it's Paul. I'm seeming to have audio issues on my end. Are you hearing the audio playback?
I am not hearing.
Yeah, I am having audio challenges, folks. Let me just see if I can clean that up, and I'm going to move on, and I'll make a post-event audio available. So, Gina, I've moved on to a new scope type that we're going to be looking at. Can you tell me that you're seeing it? The 2.2 interchangeable VideoProbe.
I am still seeing a video.
There are a number of additional enhancements that are in the 3.5
So my
software.
audio just...
And I want to take just a moment to show you one that's very valuable. When we are in the field and doing an inspection and we see an indication like this surface discontinuity here, it might be easy to call it a crack. And if you're the experienced technician, that's your prerogative. However, when you send this image to someone around the world, a remote support person or an engineer, or somebody looks at this picture 2 years from now, it is not very clear where you are in an asset. So we've enhanced the ability to add annotation in a more meaningful way. And I can position it on the screen. Now I can also change the text size to small, medium, or large. Or wanted to add additional text, I can do that. I can change the text color to accentuate or highlight or make it easier to read because of the background. I can add arrows and do the same thing with those. I can make them small, medium, or large. And I can also change the arrows' colors, where if I really want to emphasize something, I might put it as a different color to make it stand out. Something else that is also in the Flame handset that was actually added with the 3.4 software release. When I'm recording video, and in this case I'm going to a live scene, I have a lot of clutter on the screen. I have a status bar at the top that tells me what's going on with the system. I have an on-screen steering control. If you look up at the top, I can bring on-screen steering up. Just below that, I have a home button now. Below that, I have the range finder, the record button, the save button, the back button, and that is a lot of information to save on a video. I may want to clear that out. On the bottom far right, there is a toggle soft key that if I tap it, will toggle the soft keys. If I double tap it, will declutter the screen. Now, I can change the way that declutter works by going to my settings, going to screen and display, and you'll notice on the 3.5 software, we've also changed the highlighting of the fields to orange. For me, it simply makes it easier to read and know what is active. And here's where I can make the transforms of the status bar and all the soft keys down the side either semi-transparent, or I can take the whole user interface and make it semi-transparent. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So bottom right, where that soft key is hidden, the toggle button, I will double tap. You see everything that's come into view. The status bar at the top, all the soft keys down the side and across the bottom. I double tap, and I still have my status bar at the top. And you can play with these and choose what you want. If you want everything to come off the screen, use fully transparent and user interface. If you're recording video, do you want that, or would you like that? The tip map is there. If you want to declutter that, you can take that off. You can also turn the logo off on the lower left side. Even when that logo is off on the lower left side, if I touch that portion of the screen, it does pull up the global menu. One other thing that you may or may not know, if I want to capture a screenshot and use that for training, on the save key on the face of the display, if I double click that save key, you get a screenshot capture, and it's going to my folder that I'm saving images in now, which is right at the D drive. Here, I'll do it again. It's going in my D drive in the screenshot folders, and this was screenshot number 20.
Okay, so the audio there, not quite as good as I would have liked for it to be, and I hope you got some good information out of that. Again, for any kind of clarity you would want on any of that information, just post a chat question up on the Q&A. I can talk about it here at the end of the session, or again, feel free to send me an email at paul.thompson@bakerhughes.com. Now, I want to talk about something that has been a dream, and that is to have a sub 3mm video scope integrated with the Mentor Visual IQ, and it is now going to be available in a very short period of time, just within a matter of a couple of weeks. And this first launch is going to be a 2.2mm probe It's interchangeable. It's actually going to plug into your Mentor Visual's USB port, give you high-resolution imaging with a 2.2 millimeter OD camera and a 1 meter long insertion tube. So you'll be able to get into a lot of areas you weren't able to before unless you used our Boroscope adapter, which is still available, and you can clip other optical instruments like some of our fiber scopes are actually a 0.5 millimeter OD. So the possibilities there, but this is a really nice package with two-way articulation. It has field replaceable, rechargeable lithium-ion batteries down in the small end of the handle. And it's going to give you all the productivity that the Mentor Visual actually offers to you, meaning you can do a menu-directed inspection, capture images that are named with where you took the picture in the asset, generating the report at the end. I'll talk about all that here in a moment with MDI. It's also going to let you pull in a remote subject matter person to say, yes, I like what you're doing, or can you show me something else? And so you're not on your own. And you'll see that it is, like I said, integrated with the Mentor Visual IQ. I want to show you a very short video just so you have a sense for what is actually capable and what's possible with this tool. So what do you think the value is of being able to get into some small cooling holes and determine if they're blocked or not, and you're able to get adequate cooling into the ports, or if you have fin fans and castings and the like? You're now able to do that with this 2.2 millimeter scope that integrates directly to your Mentor Visual IQ. So let me ask you a question about that. Are there inspections that you're required to do regularly that are using sub 3 millimeter? Are you never doing that? It's just not something that's required for your task? Are you sometimes having to do that, or is it something that you're doing often? Just take a moment for you to take a look at those questions, and then we'll move on to the rest of this information we have. Right now, it's the never and the sometimes are polling tied neck and neck, and now Hoffman is starting to bring up the lead. So give it just another moment. I've had 7 of 35 people that have had a chance to jump in there. We just think it's going to be a valuable tool, and we think that we've offered or going to have something to offer to you that people have been asking for quite some time. And so you see there are people that will never do it. There are some people that do it frequently and regularly, and sometimes it happens. So we're looking forward to helping you out. Now, when you take a picture or when you generate a report of any data that is from your inspection, I don't know how many people have told me they sit in their hotel room at night 2 or 3 or 4 hours, they post edit pictures, they get typos in there, and it gets confusing. And not only confusing sometimes, it's significantly labor intensive. And so MDI is an app that is inherent in the Mentor Visual IQ Flame or Gray handsets. You've invested in it. If you have an Inspect or a Touch or added it as an app, it's in all of our XL family of products. And you're asking, so what? If you're not using it, the so what is, you can consistently take pictures. We're going to name something in a compressor 5th stage leading edge route the same, and we're all going to spell all those words the same, by the way. And then you have a better data set to work with if you're looking at digital twins or you're trying to understand 8 months ago, you're looking at a picture taken 8 months ago, and what was it? What do you want me to know? What's important about that? So it eliminates all the manual note-taking and then the errors that happen trying to put those into a section, and you get much more meaningful data. And the way it happens, the way it works is you sit down with an ISO drawing or an engine maintenance manual or some description of the asset, get a couple of SMEs together, and they all agree on how this template on the right-hand side of the page is built with the MDI builder. You build a template that matches what the manual calls for, and then you can load that one template on one or many machines, and then we're all using that same template. I can get as granular as going down to 5 layers. You remember when you were doing the outlining class in college or high school, you always went down to the sublayers. This will let you go 5 notes deep, take up to 1,600 pictures with 2,500 inspection points that are all DICOND tagged. That's a trivia question. What is DICOND? You see them down the right-hand side of the page there. It's digital imaging and communication for non-destructive examination, and each piece of your data can be meta tagged, so you can say, show me everything that Bob inspected on a heat exchanger in the plant and on what date. And that information is describable and definable by you when you're building it. And you see those 18 different fields. There's 20 of them, but 2 of them are DICOND tagged to date and time. They're available for you to customize this to meet your exact operation. Then when you're looking through the manual, it will tell you to inspect for, does everything look normal? Or do you see cracks or corrosion or missing material? What is it that you're experiencing? And now you have to document it. I've seen people spell burned with a T or an ED, and so now we're going to spell it the way the EMM or whatever, the engine maintenance manual, or whatever you're actually using for guiding your inspection, so that your report at the end of the day matches what the manual says look for. Normal is best, but if you find something out, you can tag it with what you found. Then you'll also have in those same manuals, it says inspect this area, and I want it to look like this, and you can put reference pictures, whether they're JPEGs or bitmaps. You can put reference material, and it's always best if it's marked for reference only, because if it becomes outdated, that can present its own set of issues to be mindful of. But now you can be in a high-pressure turbine looking at the first stage blades, and you can have a picture and say, well, what does a normal one look like? You can pull up that reference image for the HPT and have that reference image for the HPT only tied to the HPT, by the way, so it doesn't pop up when you're looking in the gearbox for reference information. It just makes your job easier, faster, you get better results, and then we're all consistently giving our leadership and engineering and management valuable information. And, you know, my goodness, if the legal people ever came and wanted to look at your data, it makes it so much easier to pull data and share it with them quickly and meaningfully. So once you build that MDI template, you load it onto your mental visual IQ. I want to show you a quick demonstration of what that would look like.
A productivity tool that had been put in your mailbox quite some time ago when we were still Everest and then Everest VIT and all the way through now to Waygate is on the lower left, MDI, Menu Directed Inspection, where you can take a template that was pre-built on a PC, predefined by your leadership to say, okay, what data are we capturing? Serial numbers? The other thing that's important to us is the inspector's name. They can define this, and it doesn't have to stay the same for every company or every inspector or every inspection. Fully customizable number of fields here. And we populate these ones that have asterisks, like serial number, inspector name, and turbine model have asterisks. They are going to be hard required before the inspector can move on. But I can also populate these other fields, like we've had 589 starts on this turbine, etc. You can fill these out. They're all DICOND tagged so that they have meta tagging sitting behind them. I'm going to place this on my G drive, and now you'll see that this turbine example, 1, 2, 3, was built out with the major nodes. If I was doing an inspection in the compressor, which none have been taken, no pictures have been taken in yet because you see the yellow nodes down the side. If I go to the compressor, I'm inspecting stage 3 today. I'm looking at blades and looking at leading edge. Now, when I press the capture key, Save key, you'll see that I can save it with a flag, and that will become a part of the file name at the top. It's going into the gas turbine 123 folder. This picture is going to be saved as compressor, stage 3, blade, leading edge, first picture taken. I can have observations that are required of the inspector to put them in or suggested. I'm going to pick typical as my observation and save that. I will then find a new scene that is remarkable, and there's a screw that shouldn't be in the middle of a turbine, so I'm going to press capture. I'm going to put comments and observations and call it foreign object debris, and put a note in there if I want to, a free-form note. And just tell somebody that it wasn't there on the last inspection. Then what I'll do is I'll save it with a flag, and I want you to notice in the blue status bar, right now it says blade leading edge 2. When I save with a flag, you see the dash flag is now a part of the file name, and you continue on. In this case, I'm finished in the compressor. If I go to the list, you'll notice that yellow leaflet that was on the left has now turned red because I've taken 0 videos, but I've taken 2 pictures, and maybe I do want to take a picture of that. So I will go back into that leaf. I will capture a video just to make sure everybody can see that screw and get a perspective of where it is. What's different today with 3.5 is this video is going to get named compressor, stage 3, blade, leading edge, and now it's also going to be placed in that MDI folder, completely new. Makes it a lot easier for the people that have to spend hours upon hours documenting images and videos and organizing them in folders. This just makes your life inordinately easier. Let me turn off that video. Now if I go to my turbine on the lower left in my list, I can click that off as completed, where if I touch in the square on the left, you see that I can place a check mark in it or take it away. So I've completed that one. I can look at the reference material for that area, and this is what it should have looked like. I must have been in the wrong area or didn't have the correct reference material loaded, but you get the idea. That's what was preloaded. I have a couple of different images. So I'm touching the back key on the screen. Now I can generate a report. If you walk up to me and asked, how am I doing on this job, the first thing I'm going to do is ask you if I can show a preview. So when I do a preview, it's going to generate the first page or pages of the cover page. It's also going to generate a summary table. So let's say I was in a refinery doing my inspections with the Visual IQ VideoProbe with 3.5 software. And you'll notice at the beginning I chose a turbine, serial number 123. So I'm doing an MDI turbine. I'm doing that on serial number 123, and you remember when I filled out my name, the model, how many starts were on the engine, and then the date and time is when the inspection started. The key at the top is telling me yellow, no images were taken, no flagged images are green, and if there were flagged images, they're red. Notice the compressor all the way out to the right. I have 2 flagged images and 1 video recording. Then, when I scroll down, you'll see that I have this set up where the text was at the top. I know what section I was in, what stage I was in, what component I was looking at, what the location was, what the observation was. Notice the text on the screen. So it's annotated already. I didn't have to type that in. Everybody's going to be spelling that annotation the same, and you see that the compressor stage 3 blade leading edge is the name of the file. And by the way, if we were to look at the flagged images, that file name would be red. Then here's my endnotes. You're the one that defines how these cover pages and endnotes are going to look. So that's how you would document an inspection using MDI. So let me go in here and I think actually what I want to do is take one more picture and then generate a proper report. I go in here to generate report, and instead of preview on the bottom right, I'm touching generate. It's about how long it takes to generate an MDI full report. Now I have a Word document and I have a PDF, if I turn that on, of this report. Certainly if you have more pictures and videos, it will take longer to compile. It could take upwards of 2 to 3 or 4 minutes, which is certainly faster than the 2 to 3 to 4 hours you're going to spend at the desk in your hotel or at home after the job is over.
Okay, so after you have completed that MDI, this is where the fun begins. It actually is going to be equally as important, and for different reasons. What do you do with the data afterwards, and how is the MDI information presented to you? One of the things you're going to notice in this video that I'm going to play for you, I did pre-record this. I thought I would have clear audio. I apologize for the scratchiness that I am hearing, so we'll get through that. One of the things you'll see is the folder now has videos in it. And MDI names and labels the videos and puts it in the MDI folder. Let's watch. Now that I've completed the inspection on the Mentor IQ, you'll notice down here on my thumb drive that I copied that turbine serial number 123 folder onto my device, and the contents there have 2 files that are used by the MDI program. You'll see my compressor stage 3 blade leading edge. That's the name of the file. I didn't have to do any of that. It was set up very early on where I built a template. I could load it in 1 or 50 different video probes, and everybody's going to be following the same template. And when I look at these pictures, you'll see that it is annotated, okay, straight on the screen with what the file name was also. So there's the stage 3 blade leading edge, picture number 1. Stage 3 blade leading edge number 2, and you'll notice that in the name of the file it is flagged. There's my video, which heretofore wasn't able to go into an MDI folder, but the compressor stage 3 blade leading edge, the video is saved, and you'll see that it's recording. It's playing back the recording. That's where I had the screw in the middle of the screen just to give you a perspective of what I was looking at. And then I generated the report. I have a Word document that's for me. I have a PDF document that's for the client. When they ask for a report, I can give them a preliminary PDF that was generated straight on the VideoProbe. If I open the Word document, what I'll find there is that it's your traditional Word document where I created this cover page. Here's my inspection summary of all the places where I may have taken pictures, and in this case I took a picture, actually took 2 of them that were flagged out of the 4 and 1 video. So let me make this a bit bigger so we can all see it a bit more easily. You can make this cover page look any way you want. And the inspection report summary up here starts off with where I selected the turbine MDI. I have populated these fields for the serial number and the inspector's name. This date and time came straight off of the machine when I started the inspection. These are those nodes that I've built out. You go into the pages, it looks like this is one per page. You can have one with the text on it or 6 with no text on it, various sizes. There's about 8 different choices of picture sizes and placement of the text table. I wanted to show you this one because this is where that compressor stage 3 blade was flagged. Brings your attention to it. I could have generated this report with all images, that's what I did. Or I could have generated it only with those that are flagged. So if I've taken 500 pictures, 3 of them are remarkable and flagged, maybe I don't want to put 300 pictures in a report. Maybe I just want those few that are flagged. So that's the beauty of menu-directed inspection. It's truly that easy to use. Okay, what I want to do now is move a little quickly through this InspectionWorks platform because I do want to have time for some questions and answers at the end. InspectionWorks is a platform. This is where you'll go to download the software to update your handset to 3.5. It's where you will be able to stream video from your device to somewhere in the world, and it's an ecosystem. So some of the apps that are available is InspectionWorks Connect Global, where I can share my screen. I'll show you some more slides on that here in just a moment. And I'll show you a live example of that. And then also Local and Control is when I have on my phone, one of the current apps that we just posted on the Apple Store is InspectionWorks Connect Local and Control. With an iOS device, you can wired or wirelessly control your Mentor Visual IQ. So it really increases the ergonomics and the ability for having multiple people watching the inspection as you're able to freely move around the asset that you're inspecting without cords and wires bogging you down and causing potential trip hazards. InspectionWorks Connect Global is just that. I was in Hong Kong. One of my very best colleagues was in New York. I was able to watch his screen share from his VideoProbe Mentor Visual IQ in New York for over an hour, and he was walking me through what we needed to know about. We were working on a lot of different things, but I was able to see his screen share live for that whole hour's worth of time, one for one. I think it was probably maybe a half a second or a 1 second delay. So like I said, the apps on the device are accessible with the buttons there on the side when you go to the global menu. And let me show you what this can look like if you initiate a global connection. VideoProbe to a subject matter expert anywhere in the world.
The setup for this InspectionWorks Connect session is at the bottom you're seeing the Mentor Visual IQ screen, and at the top you're seeing the remote subject matter expert screen where they can join the live session. The InspectionWorks button on the lower left is what the inspector would select, and to go globally, they would choose global, verify the T's and C's, and the session is now ready. You can see on the screen, I can email that to somebody, and they could just simply click on the link and it would populate the session ID. Instead, for this session, I'm going to type them in manually. So I'm going to populate the credentials with my name and the session ID and the password. Again, if I sent an email, this would have populated automatically. I just simply didn't want to click back and forth between my email platform and the screen here. So I'll join a session. And if you look on the screen, it says Paul has joined the session. What is happening now is that whatever I see on my VideoProbe, the subject matter expert is remotely going to see that same thing. So if I were to minimize this screen so you can now see both screens simultaneously, if I freeze the Mentor Visual IQ, the inspector now has the ability to look for cues from somebody in the corporate office or an engineer in the field, and what they're going to do is be able to telestrate I'm going to be able to use circles and arrows and put text. You can do free-form drawing. You'll see that the inspector is seeing that just about in real time. I'm letting go of the mouse on the top web-based viewer now. The inspector sees it practically immediately. I can chat from my subject matter expert screen on the top, and the inspector can also chat from his device. If I wanted to chat from my IQ, I would touch the chat button up on the top left, chat back. So we have text communication. It's not voice today. The remote viewer can capture a picture to their local PC and save those devices. You'll see that it gets named with a snapshot PNG. So quite a bit of functionality as a remote subject matter expert, having the ability anywhere in the world to watch a live inspection via InspectionWorks Connect global session.
Okay, that was a lot of information in a short period of time. What I want to do before I go to the Q&As is just to remind you that there are some tools, some apps on your screens. If you want somebody to follow up with you and talk to you face-to-face or virtually, please let us know. If you have questions about anything that you saw here on this web chat or anything else about how we might be able to help you at Waygate Technologies with your biggest issues, whether it is remote visual, NDP, is also UT eddy current radiography, simply let us know. I appreciate it. And with that, my colleague Tom Britton is on the phone and is going to be asking us or talking to us about the questions that showed up. What came up, Tom?
Okay, Paul, and so Robert's asking, is the 2.2 millimeter probe only applicable to the Mentor, or can he plug it into an XL Detect or Flex unit?
Yes, great question. So the 2.2 probe today has a USB-A connector on it. It can plug into and is directly compatible today with the Mentor Visual IQ. It is not going to be able to plug into the earlier XL products. They simply don't have the horsepower in processing and in taking external USB inputs. Interestingly enough, though, Robert, you can take that same device and plug it into a Windows 10 computer and use it without your Mentor. You just aren't going to have the MDI and all of the other capabilities that the proper VideoProbe offers to you. So IQ compatible, Windows computer compatible, not currently compatible with the other XL platforms.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Another question Alexa is asking is the DVR recording function, does that read out in minutes or seconds?
Great question, Alexa. That when you look at the page and you're looking at the DVR record time, something I didn't mention, I don't believe, is that you have to have that DVR recording selection off. The slider becomes active. You can set it all the way to minimum of 1 minute, and you can slide it all the way up to 10 minutes. Once you put this time selection for the buffer that you want and turn it on, you're going to see in the status bar a blinking D, red, like the record button with a D in the middle of it. If you put it at 5 minutes, you go to the global menu and you touch DVR record, it is going to take the last 5 minutes of buffered video and push it into your file manager. So think about that for a minute. You have a DVR running, and you'll be able to record other videos, but to play back those videos, you'll have to turn the DVR recorder off. There's just not enough going on yet where you can keep the DVR running and also play back a video from your video record function. A lot of functionality. You just have to think through. And by the way, it gives you a dynamic message and lets you know, turn off the DVR recording to play back videos. Good question, Alexa. What else, Tom?
So there's another question here about, I believe it's around measurement accuracy. It says, what is the method of calibration to validate inspection data, which I would believe is you perform a measurement. How do you know to believe the measurement results that you achieved?
That is one of the questions, Tom, that I spend a lot of time on when I teach one of our classes on real 3D measurement and advanced measurement. And I'll break it down in this way. It's a multi-part answer. The system that we deliver to you, whether it's an XL Flex, or whether it's any of our video probes, Mentor Visual IQ, if they have stereo on them, they leave our factory with an NIST, a National Institute of Standard and Technology, CFC, a certificate of calibration. So that NIST CFC gives you documentation that system left the factory calibrated. Then, before you deploy it into a measurement scenario, your task is to take out a device that we also include with that system, which is a verification block that also has an NIST traceable CFC, and the calibration for that block has a 6-year cycle. So every 6 years, that block has to be either A, recalibrated, or B, replaced. When you have that NIST traceable standard that has a 1 millimeter and a 0.1 inch target in it, your task is to insert the camera with a measurement tip that was originally calibrated and listed on the CFC with that camera, insert it into the verification block, and verify per the manual that is with your device that it is performing the criteria correctly. And it is typically, you should be able to measure in the verification block a 0.1 inch target plus or minus 5,000ths of an inch, or a 1 millimeter target plus or minus 0.05 millimeters. If that system performs that, we, the OEM, consider that system to be functioning normally and in calibration and operational under the certificate of calibration sent out with it. So that's part of it. The rest of the part of it is, depending on what you're inspecting, not all surface discontinuities are created equally, nor are they all on the same kind of materials. You would be best served to get a sample piece and do a gauge R&R, meaning can several inspectors repeat and reproduce the results regularly. So multiple part thought process there, Tom, and that's why, remote visual inspection is thought of as an NDT discipline that needs an on-the-job training and qualification program. What else do you have?
Okay, well, it's kind of a similar question relative to measurement is just, can you tell the general principles around how do you determine depth measurements with a optical video boroscope?
So we're doing that in two fundamental ways. One of them is with a XYZ coordinate system using stereoscopic lenses, where the offset of those two stereoscopic views are just like your eyes. Close one eye, you have a different perspective than if you close the other eye looking at the same target. Just so happens we calibrate that offset into the system, and it can calibrate and compute XYZ. Whereas with our phase system, it is a structured light system that is sending out hundreds of shadows at 120 degrees sinusoidally shifted fringe orientations. And if enough shadows hit a pixel from enough different angles, an XYZ value for that pixel can be calibrated and calculated on either one of them, stereo or phase. If you get a plurality of pixels, meaning if you have enough of the 1.2 million pixels that are on our Mentor Visual IQ HD camera, and you stitch those side by side together in a display, you now have a fully surfaced, pivotable point cloud, and it's the same thing with stereo. So, Tom, we have about coming up on the top of the hour. What I do want everybody to know is if you have any final questions, post them. We can come back to you in an email. Or if you would like us to visit you or contact you, post that also. Or if you'd like to reach out to me directly, paul.thompson@bakerhughes.com. I wish you safe travels, and thank you for joining us for this series of 4 presentations on getting faster, easier, and better RVI results. Thank you, everyone.